Welcome back, everybody, to the Family Section podcast. I think this is now our 5th episode, Greg Bottenhorn of Jazzby, the family finance app, and the no-fee family debit card, or kids, the no-fee debit card for kids. I'm going to get that right sooner or later.
Nailed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, well, thank you, Greg. And so, look, one of the things we wanted to talk about here, and we're trying to cover a wide range of issues, as everybody knows, but both Greg and I are parents. And one of the things we wanted to get to today is the whole concept of family health. And this is health in general has become a bigger and bigger topic, but as it relates to families, it gets challenging because you're constantly running around with your kids on the go, tempted to eat fast food, these sorts of things, all that sort of stuff. And Greg, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, sure, Tony. So look, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's something that I focus on in my life in terms of health and fitness and the importance of that. And I think it hasn't always been that way with me. I think once you start to have kids, you realize the importance of being around for those kids later on. I know you just have boys. I've got 2 boys, 2 girls. And so I think of things like I want to be there when my daughters get married to walk them down the aisle. And I want to be there to hang out with my son when he's an adult and when he's raising kids. And, so these things are things that I now think about being, middle-aged. And so I've really focused on them. So I work out religiously. I really focus on what I eat and what I put into my body. And I think what's important, Tony, is that every body is different in terms of how it responds to food and exercise, right? And I think that people just think it's a kind of a one size fits all type scenario, and that's not the case. And I'll tell you what my biggest concern is it's kids this day and age. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. Like when you and I were kids, you're out riding your bike, you're playing with your friends after school constantly, and it's just normal play type exercise. And kids aren't getting that today. They're sitting in front of a screen of some sort. They play sports and things like that, but generally kids aren't exercising like they used to. So this is important. And then
they're sedentary was what they just kind of sit there a lot. That's right.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're in a world of processed foods. Again, this wasn't necessarily, yes, there was processed foods when we were kids, but it wasn't like it is today, where that's the majority of what kids are eating is processed foods. So we need to find some better ways to do this.
Yeah, look, and Greg, I share the sentiment, and I will say that, look, the thing you're talking about getting to a certain age, having kids, and then all of a sudden, hey, I got to take better care of myself, is sort of a combination thing. One is, as you said, you want to be there as long as you can, right? You want to get them into adulthood, into their own lives, and then, at a certain point, you say, you never stop being a parent, as we all know, but get to a certain point where your job really is to make yourself obsolete, to get them to a point where they're totally self-sufficient, and to be there, enjoy it, and enjoy the experiences with them and that sort of stuff. The other thing is, as you mature as a person, your body changes, right? So I never had to worry about what I ate growing up because I always burned it off so fast. It was irrelevant. And then you get older and all of a sudden your metabolism slows down and you realize it doesn't matter how much I exercise anymore. I have to change how I eat too. And that's hard. Like you're used to doing things a certain way for decades. It's tough.
Oh my gosh. I can't even look at carbohydrates anymore without gaining weight. Yeah. And it's funny because my body has changed so much, to your point, right? So one of the things I always tell people, and this is not a good thing because it means I gained it back, but I've lost 80 pounds in my life 4 different times.
Yeah.
And to your point, right, as I've gotten older, you realize that each time becomes a little bit harder. It's a little bit more difficult. You have to be a little bit more strict. This last time, though, I'll tell you what I really realized is how different your muscles and your strength respond as you get older. Like I'm watching these kids in the gym that can lift a heck of a lot more than I can. I'm like, man, I used to be able to do better than this. Like, I don't know but as you get older, it gets harder to do this stuff. So,
oh yeah. And look, was it you who told me something like, and by the way, I saw Greg with the extra 80 and without the extra 80, he looks amazing.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
So, was it you who told me that every pound of weight you lose is like 4 pounds of stress off your joints?
Exactly right. It is, and I've got bad knees and a bad back. So, again, old guy problems. But yeah, it is, and it's crazy when when you lose 80 pounds and you look at that, you realize how heavy 80 pounds is. Like if you carry in an 80-pound bag of something, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was carrying this around on my body. How is that even possible? So it's nuts. And yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, then that's what 8 times 4, 320-ish pounds off my knees. I know we're doing it's like the Fugger and Maz
No,
math.
you got it right. 4 times
There you
80.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And just quickly, I'll add, years ago, there used to be a writer from the Worcester Telegram named Bill Ballou. And, he covered the Red Sox. And Billy ran marathons, things like that. I remember he lost weight and I said, wow, Bill, you look amazing. And he said something like, look, even 10 pounds helps. So think of it in these terms. Pick up a 10-pound, weight, carry it around all day.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, get rid of it. And you're like, oh my gosh, what an enormous difference, right? So like you really do get much better perspective if you say even 10 pounds, and you can eliminate a lot of that. You can get rid of the weight easily just by eliminating a lot of the junk food and, carbs and ice cream and soda and stuff like that. If people are still partaking a lot of that stuff.
Oh, for me, Tony, it's the late night snacks. It's
Yeah.
after the kids go to bed and you're sitting there, you have an hour to watch a TV show or whatever. That's what kills me.
You're de-stressing.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
You're de-stressing. I chill out, have something to eat. And I run into that problem too. Although I eat way better now than I did years ago.
because we have to. So so what do you do for exercise and working out, Tony? Do you get a chance to do much of that?
Well, so I used to love to play sports, like pick up basketball, stuff like that. And then 12 years ago, I ruptured my Achilles. Was it 12? I guess it was 10. So the 10 years ago, I ruptured my Achilles, and my wife at that time says, no more sports, so I try to avoid any sort of impact exercise. So when I can, it's on a bike. It is walking, I can go for walks in hills and things like that, but I try not to run, at least not at full speed. And because I can't afford the injuries that go along with it. And I don't have a doubt in retrospect that my weight probably contributed to blowing out my Achilles, 10 years ago. I was 44 at the time. I'm 54 now. So that I would say that, just try to get my heart rate up, and try to go on fast walks, even on a treadmill, just incline it and try to get my heart rate to, I think the doctors tell you typically for the health of your heart, over 130 for a heart rate will be effective in terms of doing that. So I try to do it that way. And, even if it's only like 30 minutes a day. And then, I do believe in sort of the, what do they call them? The bands, right? I don't do a lot of weights, stuff like that, because I'm not looking to add muscle mass, but I do want to stay as strong as I can and fit. Strong for me is not strong, Greg, but you know what I mean.
I hear you. So I think you just said a lot of good stuff in there, and for a lot of, I know we have a lot of dads in our audience, and who probably can relate to what you just said. So I'm the same way. I blew out a knee years ago, and so I've got similar situations. I can't run very well. So I'll tell you what saved me is the elliptical machine. So the elliptical is awesome because I do enjoy the workout that I get from running, and the elliptical allows me to do it without the impact on my knees. So anybody out there, that's a great one if you like to run, but your body just can't handle it anymore.
Yeah. And, look, just quickly too, because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to join a gym. I don't want to do that. Try to just work it into your schedule. If you have a treadmill in the house, great. If not, there might be one in your office. There might be one at a club you belong to or something. It doesn't take much. And if you travel, obviously most hotels come with fitness centers. Most of that stuff is way more accessible now than it was when we were younger.
So and it's also far less expensive than it used to be. There's a lot of different options out there. I'll tell you, I'm actually not a huge fan of the home gym, home treadmill type idea. Some people are fantastic with it. Most people, it ends up being a clothes hanger of some sort, because, and this is, I talk about this when I talk to people about work from home versus being in an office. You have dedicated space for stuff, and it's so much easier to blow it off if you're at home. You're like, I'm not going to hop on the treadmill today, or the kids are running around, or something's happening. For me, I actually like to have a dedicated space that I can go to every day and just focus on working out and my health. And I listen to podcasts. Maybe some people are listening to us right now, Tony, while they're at the gym. So
hopefully.
Exactly. But there's a lot of options for gym. I think Planet Fitness is like $10 a month or something. So
Right.
find an option for you. There's a million of them, these old mill buildings, and they're throwing them up everywhere now where people can just kind of go in and work out, and they're not like they used to be where it's not a bunch of muscle heads, grunting and stuff in the gym anymore. It's not like that. It's a lot of people, and it's actually a lot of kids. In my gym, there's a ton of high school kids, which I love seeing, that are just focused on making sure they can get some activity in, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add one thing because, and I'll give Mike Felger credit for this because, we've talked about this kind of stuff on the show, on the Felger and Maz show, but particularly as it pertains to Tom Brady, who obviously takes great care of himself. But, the older you get, you can exercise all you want. If you don't eat well, it's not going to make a difference. Like,
Oh,
it might improve your cardio. So I shouldn't say that, but in terms of managing your weight, it really becomes a diet as much as anything else, more than anything else. So the point is, you got to do both, Greg, right? You got to do both.
So look, for sure, I can tell you again from my experience. I've done this a few times. As a matter of fact, losing weight is really all about the food you put into your body. The exercise part of it is just for your health and your heart and all that fun stuff. But if you want to lose weight, it's all about the food you put in your body. And it's not just about calorie restriction. It's about the types of calories that you consume and then how your body burns those calories to give you energy, right? So I'll give a shout out to one of the big Sports Hub sponsors, Awaken 180. I've actually used them a couple times. They're phenomenal, like phenomenal. Unfortunately, I've had to use them twice because COVID happened and I gained some weight back. But they've got a program where you're not hungry, you feel great all the time. And their program actually says, don't work out aggressively while you're on this. You can walk for half an hour a day, but I wanted to go to the gym and they're like, don't go to the gym. Your body's right now just trying to lose the weight. So they're a great partner for anybody in the Massachusetts area, but there places like that are all over the country. So I will tell you, they're a little costly. However, you can budget it in. For me, like the amount of money that I saved from not eating out 2 or 3 times a week more than paid for the program. So you got to factor in some of that stuff when you're doing this too.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that there's a competing company, Fat Burn America.
There you go. Sorry, I think they're yours, aren't they?
Yeah, and I did that program. And again, initially it used to be New England Fat Loss, and then COVID, made their life difficult as it did for many companies, and they sort of rebranded as Fat Burn America. But it has taught me a lot. I love it, and I try to adhere to the principles pretty much every day. In terms of what and they told me the same thing, by the way, Greg, don't work out while I'm losing the weight.
Yeah.
Because they want your body to adjust at its current, sort of at your current metabolism rate versus working out and messing that part of it up.
But
anyway,
by the way, that is another awesome program. Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Oh, no, don't worry. Don't worry. It's fine. I mean, again, there's room for a lot of people there, Greg.
That's right.
Room for a lot of people. So I know that, look, we could go on and on about this, and I could tell you how my mother used to feed me when I was a kid, and, it used to be like a fruit and vegetable plate after school every day, which was fabulous. And now, as you said, much more processed food. But I know that we have a guest who knows a lot more about this than we do, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's bring him in.
Okay, so we're going to bring in our guest now, David Jack, who is a health and fitness guru. Greg will give you the lowdown on him. But again, just a quick reminder before we go to break. You can find the Family Section podcast on the podcast page of 985thesportshub.com. Also on the Sports Hub app. You can also find it at jassby.com/podcast. And that is JASSBY.com for Jassby. Obviously the usual suspects too, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, B Pod Studios, B as in Beasley, the Beasley Media Group, which owns the Sports Hub. And remember, you also find us on YouTube, and we urge you in all of these places, follow, rate, and review. Okay, remember. So thanks for that. If you could do that, and David Jack will join us next.
All right, we are back on the family section here with Bot and Maz, brought to you by Jassby, the family finance app, no-fee debit card for kids. As promised, so we're talking about health and fitness today and how that relates to your family. Joining us is David Jack, and I love the way someone else actually described him, and they called him a fitness coach, activator, magnifier of good, which I think is awesome. But he's one of the world's most recognized sports performance and conditioning coaches. David's an industry leader, consultant for major brands and publications like Reebok, Rodale, Men's Health, Women's Health. He's been on the Katie Couric Show. He does a lot of corporate gigs. He's got a whole line of men's fitness DVDs, which I've actually bought, Dave. He's worked with some top professional and collegiate athletes. The list goes on and on with this guy. On a personal note, Dave was actually one of my earliest mentors, both in business and in fitness, and probably one of the most important, as it was really a critical time in my life. So, David, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without you, so I thank you for that. And welcome, David Jack.
Listen, GB, we were talking before we came on, and just to see you now over 20 years later, just doing things that I just remember your conversations. I remember what drove your heart and what you were passionate about. And, you know, in those moments of your life, not knowing how you'd get there, or if you'd ever get there, like not knowing how it would come together, but so cool to fast forward and just see you doing what you're doing. And I am just so genuinely happy for you and to be here and for the work that you guys are doing.
I love it. Thank you very much for that. Anything I left out of your intro?
Here's what it is. I'm a train wreck. I have the hardest time trying to figure out fitness for my own life. I'm a fitness professional that has, like, you know, that terminology suspect at best. I'm trying to get better and better at what I do. And it's not necessarily easy, but it's this wild journey. When I came in to the room that you guys were transitioning and prepping in, I heard someone say, these words to me are like, what? I think Steph, one of your producers, said, I am so excited. I can't wait to go to the gym. And I'm like, what? What happened? What I miss? Can you guys tell me what I missed to get someone to say that?
So I'll tell you what, man, I love it too. It's one of those things. It's like anything else. Like, I get addicted to it. So I go 2 hours a day religiously, and wow. You know, I always tell people it's one of those things that you never regret doing. And if you're tired, if you don't feel good, if you're sore, get up, go to the gym, do what you can do, because when you walk out of there, you're never going to say, man, I wish I hadn't have done that. Like, it's one of those things. Right. And so I'm the same way. Like, I get excited. I'm excited to go to the gym tonight too. I can't wait.
Wow, man. You know, I would say that you can count yourself blessed because you live in a really small percentage of human beings. Most statistically and realistically, most human beings, they hear the word fitness and it's a swear word. It really is. What they hear when they hear the word fitness is, I have to, I need to, I should, I'm not, I'm guilty, I feel condemnation, I feel less than. Well, I don't even know where it's a burden. It's a weight. It is something that isn't fun. It is something that's not a part of their life. And how do you help someone step into that part of self-care, taking care of themselves when that's how they feel about it? That's the reality of it. And that's
so David, I don't want to tell you I'm one of those people, but I think I lean more that way than Greg does. Yeah. And so I tend to be all or nothing with fitness. Like, once I get going, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I also struggle more during the winter. Like, I'm good as if I'm outside.
Yeah.
And but if I have to do it indoors and it's not as light, you know, I much prefer being outdoors, being able to put in my, you know, my headphones or AirPods or whatever. I go for a nice walk, even in colder temperatures. I mean, not freezing, but cooler temperatures. I'm totally fine with that. But I definitely lean the way you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something, Maz, that, you know, you have found something. When you talked about, I go outside, I put in my headphones, I go for a walk. You know, when you're on that walk, what are you thinking about when you're on that walk?
Well, so I've got in the habit of trying to take my mind off of things when I'm out there. So, like, I will listen to music. Occasionally I'll listen to, you know, my colleagues out doing their shows just to try to get ideas or get things done. But I would say more often than not, when I'm out doing that, it's music.
And see, so you've hit two principles in one quick story that I can just anchor, and I think it's really powerful. I have found for myself, and I have found for a lot of people that I've had the opportunity to serve, that there's a couple things that really bring their fitness, which I put quotes around it because it's such a confusing word and it's so personal. So one of them is that you start to understand and identify your active map, your fitness identity, how you're motivated, how you're wired. And guess what? There's a million things you can do. You've got to do none of them. You get to do what works for you, and it can change over time. There are some overarching principles and themes with it. It shouldn't hurt you. You should generally feel better when you finish than when you started. on a scale of 1 to 10, you 10 being can't wait to do this, 1 being like, I hate this. It should trend up toward the higher side of that number. So if so many of the things you're doing with your fitness feel like a 5 or less, change it, because you can. So there's this universe of movement. It's unlimited. It really is underpinned like the English language. Once we learn the alphabet, we've got the tools to basically take that and go anywhere we want with it. Fitness and wellness is the same thing. So understanding your personal identity and your fitness identity, giving yourself permission to make it your own, not having someone say, this is what you need to do to be fit. No, this is who I am. And I can start to pull from that unlimited universe for me. Second, I find when people connect intentions that are greater than themselves to what they're doing, they make the same thing different. The last one for me is the most powerful, and you hit on it. When I do something active, I'm doing an activity, I'm in exercise, whatever it is, and the cares and the concerns of the world disappear.
Yeah.
That is magical. And for me, when I work with people, if they don't have that, we help them try to discover it. If they have it, we remind them of just how amazing it is. And we remind them of the fitness goodness. Because I was just talking with a lady the other day. I mapped her, and she's from the coast in California and in entertainment. So, she's running around and it's tough. And she told me about some things that she does. I said, scale of 1 to 10, when you think about going to that place, Stone Steps, I said, how you're looking forward to it? I hate it. Give me a number. 10 being can't wait to go. She's like, it's a 10. I said, okay. How many days a week do you go? She's like, 3 to 4. I said, tell me what you do when you're there. She says, and then I said, on a scale, I want to take you through the pillars: physical, mental, socio-emotional, and spiritual. We believe those are the 4 pillars of fitness. I said, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it hits all the buttons. Tell me on the physical fitness where that lives for you. What you think that is? She's like 5 or 6. I said, okay. Tell me mental. She's like 9 or 10. I said, tell me spiritual, whatever that means to you. She's like 9 or 10. I said, emotional, social. It's 9 or 10. I said, I'm not going to touch it. I said, just because it is a 5 or a 6 on a physical, what did my physical body get from this? What that is giving her 120 to 150 minutes a week is magic, because there's not one moment when she's on that beach doing what she does where she's thinking about, I've got to take 5,000 steps. I've got to get my heart rate up. I need to. Someone's got to prod me, push me, bribe me, motivate me. No. Someone has to stop her, because, oh my gosh, I got to go back. I got to get to work. That is a paradigm shifter. And you found that for yourself in your walks. And here's what's so beautiful. That walk for you, you can make that same walk 1,000 different experiences.
Right. Exactly.
So look, Dave, I think that's all amazing. And there's 2 things that I want to make sure we touch on. And one is, a lot of our audience is like middle-aged dads who don't, we work a lot. We're doing things that don't necessarily, we don't think give us the time unless we find it. And 2, I know you do a lot of work with kids. One of the things that Tony and I talked about in the first segment was kids today aren't outside playing after school and riding their bikes with their friends and all this stuff. They're in front of a screen somewhere. And to add on to that, they're eating, most of what they're eating these days is processed foods. So just if you could touch on those 2 things, what the dads can do that are listening, or moms. I don't mean to single out the dads, but a middle-aged parent who doesn't think they have the time. And then how do we get our kids more to grasp this?
Okay, first and foremost, you do have time, but you don't. And if you don't think you have time, you don't. And to try to make more of it, you're just going to get stressed out. That's a mental thing that we'd have to work through in coaching. It's real for people. And if it's real to you, it matters. It's real. So here's the deal. It's not the minutes that matter. It's the matter in the minutes. You don't need a lot of time to make a big difference, period. You could spend 5 hours with your kids every day, 5 hours. And then from a statistical standpoint, have people be like, wow, what a great dad you are. And for 4 hours and 58 minutes, you're like watching a game. Not that that's bad. You're on your phone. You're like half paying attention. When your kids say something, when they say something, it matters. So when I'm looking at you, even as you guys here, if you're talking to me about something that I don't care if it matters to me, it matters to you. So I listen. And it's funny, my kids are 16 and 17. They're, like they're half listening all the time. But when they talk to dad, they're watching me because he's seeing me. Kids spell love. You've heard this, T-I-M-E. And you know what matters with time? I see you. I see you. You matter to me right now. What matters to you matters to me. So when you're talking to me, I'm not half here. Oh, what's that, Mass? What? Oh yeah, man. That's cool. Oh, you got an award. That's awesome. I saw you got that in 08 and you got that's great. That makes 3 for you. That's really cool. Oh no. What do you guys think of me when I'm like talking to somebody like that? I do this with kids all the time in schools. They look at me and they're like, I go ahead, give me. You're like, you're a jerk.
Right.
You're a jerk.
Yeah. It's really about the attention, right?
It's it. So when your kids are little, this is where it gets interesting. When your kids are, it's understanding what matters to them. Family matters. What matters to them? If you want to figure out family matters, you got to understand what matters to you and what matters to the people in your family. And it might be different. I can tell you this, your attention matters to all of them.
Oh,
each of them have different love languages. Each of them respond.
Yeah.
But what I used to do for me, one of my favorite videos, it was garbage from a quality standpoint. And there were things that I've done in studio, but this one I just shot off the cuff. It was for Father's Day one year. And it was these movements that I used to do with my daughters that I allowed them to like participate in and create names for, build obstacle courses with kids. It was one of their favorite things. Like in your house, we would just like turn on 2 of our favorite songs when grandma's here, like some of her old classics, Bobby Darin, and we would just dance. And I'm watching my daughters dance with their grandmother, like laughing and moving in a million different directions, and their heart is beating, and not once are they thinking about fitness. It's a memory. It's not what you do, it's how you feel. That's good fitness. That's that fitness as the outcome, not as the goal. For dads in particular with boys, young boys that are listening, especially before that age of 10 and 12, but the younger, the better, those early impressions of rough and tumble play, coming home and mixing it up with your sons and letting them jump on you. My daughters, by the way, as well, letting them be on daddy, letting them. So we created these 10 different things, and we named them like flip and dip, flip and slide, tummy twister, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like moving them and flipping them and doing, and they are laughing and having a blast. And we've got names for them. That's fitness.
Yeah.
That is fitness, man. And as your kids get older, it's being present with them, shooting hoops, rebounding for them. Like, and you know what? You can sit in a squat position if you want to work your legs and rebound for a minute. You can like balance on one leg if you want to rebound for a minute. Take that same rebounding, make it different if you want to mix some stuff in. But once again, it's participating with your kids in things that matter, and it's available to you. It's harder for me. It was hard when my kids got older, because they weren't my little girls and they're not your little boys and they're doing different things, but the solutions are there for you. The other thing I did with my kids, I was like, my gosh, it's a built-in, this is what we call done for you, right? We used to playground hunt. So when they were little, it's beautiful because if early they experience the opportunity to learn different movements, figure it out on their own, I don't have to teach them, they inwardly discover it because it's wired in them. By the way, that's beautiful. That is beautiful to frame a foundation of movement, a foundation of athleticism, and then having joy connected with the idea of fitness. Do not, my opinion, unless your kids are wired a certain way or they've got a really big why that they want to connect training to at the right age, do not push fitness. Do not, oh, you need to. Oh my gosh, that language is everywhere and it's a disaster. Make it so it's like you talked about nutrition, Greg. I love recipes because I don't have to talk to you one bit about these. I did this on the Katie Couric Show. I could lay out a pile of vegetables in front of my daughters and be like, listen, this is why these are good for you. And this is why we got to eat them, right? Here's all the studies, got 1,000 of them. They're here's what Dr. So-and-so said. They're like, whatever, not happening. I could swipe all those veggies off the table, put them in a crock pot, make a dope bowl of chicken noodle soup, send it back to them, and they'll ask me for seconds. I don't care how the good stuff gets in you. It's the delivery system. So for me, that's the same way with fitness. Also playgrounds. We playground hunted. I took my daughters to playgrounds they wanted to go to. And when we got there, they would just go where they wanted to go. I don't care. Fences over there, fences over there. Dad's in the middle. I sat down on a bench. I played with them sometimes. I got a little work done. They were safe. I literally watched one daughter when she was 1.5, kind of like stumbling around. I was holding my 6-month-old Ella, you know, just trying to like sit her against this climbing wall. And then over the course of the next 3 years, I was just watching my kids climb and monkey bar and jump and spin. And it taught them.
So
it's a place for them to grow.
So David, you said something there too that I found interesting. You said something about how let them figure out how their body works or something to that effect. Like, I think that's a big part of it. And like, you know, this, you know, when they try to do something, because we all sort of approach it differently. We all learn it differently, whether you're a visual learner or an actual applied learner or whatever. And, you know, parents are inclined to jump in and say, oh, do it this way. And sometimes they need instruction, particularly when they're little. Don't get me wrong. But like, not everybody can sort of execute it the same kind of way, right? So sometimes I think staying out of the way is the better thing to do.
Man, you are right on. You're right on, Maz. And I think what you've hit on is we have a concept in coaching, and it's called overcoaching. Our job is to keep someone safe, to understand what matters to them, to understand the principles that matter to us, but then to give them some room. And my tendency early in my career was, first of all, you know, there was a young guy, Greg, your namesake. He was a young man. He was an athlete when I had a training facility outside of Boston. And because I was energetic and because you get in that environment and you're with athletes and you're up and everybody's fired up and you got all your stuff going on. And I would be like, gee, we call him Greg. Gee, that was amazing. Da, da, da. And what I come to realize was Greg's an introvert. And every time I do that with Greg, inside, and he was comfortable with me, safe in the environment that was settled and established. People need to feel safe. Safety here physically gives you freedom. But he was like, why are you yelling at? Why are you calling me? He
would withdraw.
So I learned for him, this one, high fives and energy. This one, I would just walk by him and be like, man, that was textbook. Quiet. Just to him. And that was all he needed. So that's one. The second thing that you had said was, you know, I would find myself being like, I want to help them so much. You know, can I? And it's like, wait a second, just wait. Are they safe? Yep. Let it play out. Let it play out. Why would I want to rob them of what's already in them? That's what a coach does. I just show you what's already in you. There are times when we got to switch our hats around as parents, you know that, where they don't know this. You picked up a chainsaw, you've never used it before. Whoa, let me show you a few things. And by the way, not yet. But for the most part, it's sometimes we've got to teach. Sometimes we've got to coach. Sometimes, which means I know you've got it in you. I'm just going to give you an opportunity to draw it out. You know, sometimes we mentor, so it's understanding, but I'll tell you, you hit something so powerful. Let them explore, let them discover. They'll surprise you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a critical part of parenting. I think you say overcoaching, and we apply it, Greg, in some ways as parenting, right? I mean, we look at it more in those terms. And I just think that we overparent a lot. Like, they'll figure it out. You don't want them in any danger, but let them figure it out. They'll benefit more by doing it on their own, because the next time they do it, they'll say, oh, I did this. And then there's confidence in that.
Yeah. And watch this, helicopter parenting, we know. And by the way, we do it because we love our kids. One of my mentors said to me, what I will tender to you is that if I spoke to someone who had that issue and I said, I know you're doing it because you love your kids, but I will say to you, you're abusing your children. You want to see someone get fired up. You want to see a mom be like, what did you just say? And when you pull it apart, it's like you hit it right on the head. If I allow you to discover something, the next time you have an opportunity to explore something and have an experience, you've either got to do this. What should I? How? Or you're like, oh, it's a pyramid. It's unbelievable how different those two paradigms are.
So, Greg, I think you had something else you wanted to get to too, right?
Actually, I had a bunch. I was just going to say I could probably talk to Dave for hours. However, we are up against the clock here, so maybe Tony, what we'll have to do is have David back in a later episode where we can talk about some other stuff, because I think this is all great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey,
so, David,
go ahead, Matt. Go.
No, I was going to say, so one of the things, the mental health is a big part of this, which we're not going to do now, but we're going to bring you back and do that. Okay.
Yeah, I love it. Love it, man. It is right on time. I have so much to share on that. I come from a family with mental health history. I've struggled with it for the first time in my life in the last 3 years. It is humbling. It is really, really a man. It's a person of strength that is willing to talk about their weakness. And we've got that whole paradigm needs to have a conversation, what skilled warriors really are. But I wanted to share one thing. If I don't get a chance to come back for whatever reason,
sure.
I thought about these guys who are like me. And I know, here's what I'm saying, like as an athlete, if I can connect it to that and use that analogy, athletes have pre-game routines, they have in-game routines, and they've got tools in the middle of the game that you watched some of the tournament. You saw one of the Duke guys come up, he closes his eyes, he takes a massive inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, which is a reset breath. He's got breathing tools, and he stepped up to the line to make foul shots, and he made important foul shots. So he had tools that when it comes down and the pressure's on and the storm is swirling, you know how to find your way into the eye. It's still a storm, but there's peace in there. The last is post-game. What did we learn? How could we look back without judgment? It's not watching film to be like, look what you did, you idiot. It's like, what can we learn so that we can continue to activate what's best in you? And so I find that coming home from work, for me, how can I create an environment for myself on the way home that starts to transition me before I enter the house? So I leave behind the last thing. By the way, we're not perfect. We'll never get this right. And that's beautiful because we learn.
It's hard. This is hard.
It is, but it's worth it, right? And
yeah, totally.
Mistake, we get to be vulnerable. As men, we hide that. It's like, no, you want to make magic in your home? So look your kids or your wife in the eye and say, or vice versa. There's women, I'm sure, that listen to your husbands, your significant others, and say, I'm sorry. I was out of line. I shouldn't have said that. It's okay. You're not perfect. So I think having that reset before the house so that when you walk in the door, I'm present, and it's not a perfect science, but if you make little deposits in that consistently over time, just like anything with compounding, seemingly insignificant things, it's the same for their own health pursuits. That's just a minute. That was stupid. I did 3 things of those. Those little consistent deposits turn into something massive over time.
I love it. DJ, this is all awesome stuff. Do you have anything that you want to plug?
No, sir. I am so grateful to be here, to have the opportunity to share. And I thank you guys for this platform. And I just feel really welcome. I feel great energy. And I'm so grateful that you guys are here and you're doing what you're doing for people that rely on your leadership.
Awesome. David, well, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really, we can't thank you enough for your time. And I'll just remind people quickly, Greg, as always, that you can find the Family Section podcast at a lot of places. But let me say this: jassby.com, okay, jassby.com/podcast. You can find the podcast there first and foremost, and obviously at the 98.5 website, bpodstudios.com, which B stands for Beasley. Beasley is our parent company. Also, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. We're on the YouTube. We have a YouTube component as well. And remember, we urge you, follow, rate, and review, right? Because we're trying to get this podcast to grow, and we think it can really appeal to a lot of different people. So, David, listen, thanks again for your time. Greg and I, everyone else, will catch you next time on the Family Section podcast.
Thank you, guys.